Percy Jackson and the Olympians Episode 3 was a narrative treat. It sets out to accomplish the goal of setting up the trio of Percy, Annabeth, and Grover, and it's the episode in my eyes that makes or breaks this entire franchise, as if the three main characters aren't well written, or if they simply don't have good chemistry, then all is lost. For the third episode of Percy Jackson, I'd like to talk about its immaculate utilization of implementing character development into creating likable and well-written characters within the narrative of its episode, and how sticking to the basics can result in a story that's moving and powerful. Let me set the stage. Percy Jackson and the Olympians tells the story of Percy Jackson, who is set to go on a quest to retrieve Zeus's Master Bolt. And to do this, he needs two other members to go on this quest with him. Percy chooses Annabeth and Grover, which we are first led to believe that Percy chooses them because he trusts them. Later we will discover the truth. For now, though, the trio sets out on their quest to a rough start, with Percy and Annabeth insulting each other based off a tension built upon from the previous episode. This is a great way to begin this episode. Conflict and tension between the main characters at the start of a journey is crucial into building up characters to becoming more close-knit later on. The trio continues on their merry way till they end up in a bus, where Percy and Annabeth are really at each other's throats, and Grover is forced to try to calm them both down to no success. This scene further exemplifies the conflict between Percy and Annabeth, which really shows the lack of communication they both have towards each other. It's a great step in this story to build up tension, in which we finally reach our first scene into character building, with the woods scene. This is the first point in the story where the trio are at a climax of tension, where all the conflict up to now reaches a form of breaking point. The main problem here is empathy, or rather lack thereof. Annabeth refuses to have empathy towards Percy's lack of experience as a demigod, and Percy refuses to have empathy towards the emotional weight on Annabeth's shoulders. And Grover refuses to be the one to break them up because of his fear of failing Percy and Annabeth as individuals. This dynamic ends up with Percy feeling alone, feeling like he can't trust Annabeth and Grover, and it puts all three characters emotionally distant from each other. Which builds upon in the next scene where Percy trusts the monster Medusa more than he does his friends. We then get a scene that I think is one of the best written in the series so far. Medusa explaining her backstory to the trio. It's a moment that tests Percy, Annabeth, and Grover's friendship while connecting their struggles to Medusa. Medusa relates to Percy because he's a kid who's struggling because of Poseidon, which Medusa knows all too well about. Medusa relates to Annabeth because she's a kid who worships Athena and is burdened by it. Again, something that Medusa knows all too well about. Medusa tries to capitalize on the struggles the trio has been going on within their adventure, trying to convince Percy to get rid of Annabeth and Grover. However, the narrative focal point that keeps Percy grounded and stops him from betraying his friends is his loyalty. Everything Medusa says in this scene works against Percy, until Medusa states that she'll kill Annabeth and Grover to help Percy. This is such an important scene because there are many moments in this series where Percy could easily be the villain. He has all the traits to become bitter and resentful of others, and could use that to get what he wants. But here was a great example of his loyalty to his friends, which keeps him from becoming the villain. Percy then ends up slicing off Medusa's head, where we then get a great scene of Annabeth subtly respecting Percy's decision to turn on Medusa, which leads to the scene where the trio finally confronts the struggles they have been dealing throughout the entire episode, with Grover being their guiding compass. Grover telling Annabeth to be more empathetic about Percy's situation as a new demigod, and Grover telling Percy to be more empathetic about Annabeth's complicated situation with her mother. This conversation finally leads into the reason Percy chose Annabeth and Grover in the first place, which is because of the prophecy Percy received before he went on the quest, where he was told that he would be betrayed by a friend. Percy chose Grover because he never thought Grover would betray him, and Percy chose Annabeth because he never thought Annabeth could be his friend. So in Percy's mind, there was no chance of being betrayed. This brings me to the entire theme of this episode: faith. Percy believing that either Annabeth or Grover may betray him was testing his loyalty in this episode. The entire quest shows the effort of Percy's faith in his friends. Even after being told he'd be betrayed by his friends, he believes in them in the end. It's what makes the entire episode feel moving and powerful emotionally, because the trio, especially Percy, has this connection with faith, with believing in your friends even if you're not sure you should, which counteracts Medusa's purpose in this story, which is to break that faith. So, by using a common theme for storytelling, and making sure it stays consistent throughout your main characters within the entire story you're telling, it's how you make a moving narrative that feels good to engage in through its conflicts and its resolutions. So out of 5, what would I rate this episode? 4.5 out of 5. It's a very strong episode, with the only real complaints I have was some specific line delivery from Annabeth, and some scenes from the Percy Jackson books not making it into this adaptation, such as the bus exploding. But overall, this episode's adherence to creating a well-crafted, emotionally moving narrative about faith in the people you care about was spectacular. That's my review of Percy Jackson and the Olympians Season 1, Episode 3. Let me know your thoughts of this episode in the comments below. Thank you for watching.